Welcome to this first video of TreeMaster. We're going to cover a lot of the basic functionality and how you can use this to create tons of vegetation and trees for your game. So we'll start off. You see that I've got the TreeMaster object selected here. You can add this by right-clicking TreeMaster controller. So we'll just go ahead and do that so you can see. What that will do is that will actually create for you the very first TreeMaster prefab, and you see I've got the edit tree window open here, and you can find that by going Tools, TreeMaster, Edit Tree. I'll just place it over here. So with that selected, we are selected on the tree. We've got a couple of options here. You see that we've got a TreeMaster trunk selected that's got 27 additional options. We're currently on 17, and it gives a little bit of a note here, just kind of let you know that when you make these changes, you're going to be running through the different options of trunks. That's not going to affect the tree itself, so that's just something to kind of be aware of. I think we're on 17. Then we can come in here and hit the Add TreeMaster Controller. You can also, if you like this, you can just go ahead and save this out as a prefab. Maybe it's perfectly what you want. You can come in here and adjust. So maybe you want this tree trunk down here. Maybe you want this branch, say this branch over here. Maybe you want that down there. You can make all kinds of changes that you want to this prefab, and then you can save out a new prefab, or you can just go ahead and export this entire tree creation as a new terrain tree. So you can do that with this option. What we're going to do is we're going to add the TreeMaster controller to this particular tree. So we'll just hit that, and you see things kind of change. That's because these sliders are just a global control over everything. So the first thing that we'll do, we'll look at what the sliders, the different options we have. Show editing sliders. This is the power of TreeMaster. There's a couple of things that are that you can add. We're just going to go down the row here. So do we want to adjust the tree type? So we'll go ahead and say yes. And as you slide through here, you can see there's lots of different types of trees that you can use. One thing that is worth noting here is the scale that you see is not necessarily the scale that you would use. So like, for example, the scale of this tree right here, if we go down to our trunk scale, you might actually export this particular tree smaller, like this. You could go bigger, it just depends on your scenes. Like, then we got this guy here. This one would probably, you'd want to export as a bigger tree. It's just kind of shaped that way. Of course, you could do whatever you want. So we'll go through and just kind of look at some more of these. Got lots of options here. Again, you look at them, so like these are moving in towards more of like the bushes and just general foliage. So we've got some short ones down here, some grass. And the great thing is you can make your own options. If you got something that you like, you can export a new one, and it'll become one of the tree types, and we'll go over that later. So let's say we like this tree. All right, so with this, there's a couple of really cool things that we can do. We can come down and say, all right, let's adjust the tree bark. Maybe we don't particularly like the bark that's on this tree. Actually, I want to go to one that's a little bit cooler. All right, so we got something like that. You can really see what the bark looks like. So do we want to adjust the bark? Yes. And then you can just scroll through and see, what kind of bark that you want to go with. And you find one that you like, and good to go. So I really kind of like this one, but maybe we will go with something like that. That looks kind of cool. All right, so we got our bark. We can uncheck that so we don't accidentally change it later. We can then scale it, as we've already seen. We can, maybe this is a good size tree here. The trunk vertical, so this obviously will make the tree bigger or smaller. Trunk vertical just means, are you going to push it into the ground, or are you going to raise it up, right? So we've got those options. Maybe, you know, export terrain trees and they always are sitting out of the ground like that, then you can just push it down like this and you'll be good to go. You can rotate it around. Of course, this just, you know, gives you more varieties. Trunk tilt, maybe you want to have it pressed in one way or another. You can see back here, this tree in the distance was exported with a little bit of a tilt, just to kind of show that, hey, this tree maybe has had, you know, a rough day with the wind. So you can do your tilts like that. We'll go ahead and set that back to 0 for now. So those are your main controls for the trunk itself. We come down to our foliage. Do we want to adjust a variety? This is where you'll probably spend most of the time playing. So we'll say yes, we want to adjust it. And you've got 64 different varieties of foliage to use. There you can see this is one where, you know, it is completely devoid of leaves. You can do those. You can, I'll give you lots of different options. Maybe you want some alien worlds, or, you know, just different trees. So I try to give you lots of different options. So you got 64 options. If you come down to leaf material and scroll that dude over, now you're using a completely different material. So you now have 64 new options. So you scroll through here and now you're going to get a completely different set. And the second material, I tried to do a little bit more just having fun with the colors. As you can see, not necessarily tons of super realistic like you see in the background here of these, you know, normal green. I try to give some, but again, I try to just give things that are something that just gives you a little bit more fun to play with. So you got that. So you can switch back and forth between the two of those. So you got 64 each way. Foliage scale, this one's fun because it's going to actually boost up the size of the foliage that's on the branches. And this, a good thing to do with this one is maybe you know, you need to just boost up how much foliage is being covered. So there you go. Now you can see that this is taking up a lot of the foliage is taking up a lot of the tree itself. So you got that power, and then foliage vertical just is going to take everything and move it up. This, move it down. This is one of those ones that maybe won't get used all the time, particularly on this type of a tree, but maybe it's something more like this one. You can see here, you can actually just push the whole thing up. So that's kind of what that one's for. It's not going to be perfect in all the different cases, but just kind of gives you something else to play with. Let's look at something like, let's do this one. So we come down to flowers and roots. So let's go ahead and add our flowers. So you see, by doing that, we have now added in flowers. We now have variety that we can run through. So purple flowers. And this applies to all the different trees. I'm just showing you this one particular one. Let's scale this up. You see, we can make them smaller. We can make them bigger. You see, you got a lot to play with here. So we scroll through and you can see as we go through our trees, now all the trees have those particular sets of leaves. And you know, we're definitely getting into some high poly counts, you know, and we'll go over how to optimize stuff like that later. But you can see there's a lot of power with adding the different types of foliage and then making the leaves bigger, the flowers bigger, whatever. Maybe you don't want that, you just want some good roots. So let me find another cool tree. Let's go with this one. So we're going to add roots to this guy. So we've added our roots, and you can't really see it because it's under the ground. So let's just use the root vertical and move this up. Let's see. There's our roots. So it's like it is down there. And let's go back. Root scale, so it's just really small. So we can see what that looks like. And you know, if you notice that it's not particularly fitting very well with the tree, you can rotate it around, and worst case scenario, you can just go right down to the root itself and move it into place. All the trunks are different sizes and different positions, so not every one will work perfectly. You can move those around, you can scale them. I'm going to actually just try a different one. So like those look kind of cool. So we can move the vertical, move that down. I think that's actually pretty cool. You can rotate it if it's not quite sitting at the right angle that you want. So maybe something like that's better. So now you've got your roots, you've got flowers, you can adjust your foliage, you can come in and let's say you like this one, but you know, maybe I like having this, but I'll just go ahead and hit duplicate, and let's make another one over here on this side. And just that easy, you can change up your tree, make something different, a little bit more customized to what you're wanting, your look. So you've got that. I'll notice I'm always going back to the root of the TreeMaster. This is where all your controls are going to be. So we've got our tree. Let's say we like it. It's the right, you know, you can walk up to it in your game, see it, you know, is it sized correctly? If it's not, then you can just make the trunk scale bigger, smaller, make it fit the scene that you want. So now we're ready to actually export this new tree. I'm gonna actually go back and let's pick something different here. Let's go into, let's see, I just saw one I liked. Let's just do this one. All right, so let's say this is the tree that I like. I've messed around with it. I've moved branches. I've, you know, done everything. Let's see if we can, maybe that looks kind of cool. It's a little bit more fuller of a tree. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at how big of a export is this gonna be. So we'll come down to our mesh analysis. We see that our whole tree's got 14,000 vertices. And so that's not too bad, but we can come down and open up our exporter, and we've got a couple of simple options that we can do here. The first one being, you know, maybe we like it, but 15,000 you know, it's just a little bit too much. You can reduce the whole thing by half or by quarter. So let's just see what by half looks like. So what it does is it just goes through, and every other source of foliage that the tree has, it's going to just hide it. So they're still there. You see, if we open up, it goes through all of our foliage, and it's just going to hide every other one. So maybe, you know, you want one. So let's say we just turn that one back on. So we like one there. You can see these are the different branches, how it's constructed. So let's go look down here where it's a little empty. And we see that this whole one just got hidden, so we can turn it back on. So now that one came back out. And we can do the same thing. So you can see you can really customize these guys. So that one's on, but the leaf plane itself got turned off, so we'll just leave that. Maybe we'll rotate that one around, right? So now what we can do is we can go back. So maybe it's like, okay, so we look at our edit tree, we're at, you know, 11,000 vertices for our mesh analysis. Okay, so let's say that's fine, but it's still a little skimpy. So we can just go back up to our foliage scale. We can boost that up a little bit more to help kind of take up, you know, what we lost by losing some of the foliage. And I think that this works pretty good. Maybe I'm going to tilt this guy just a little bit. Maybe see what rotating it. Let me give it a little bit of a rotation and then tilt it. We'll just leave it like that. So we're ready to export it. So we've got a couple of things. We can just save this prefab itself. We can export this collapsed mesh for terrain, or we can save a new tree template. So that's what these guys are up here. These are our tree templates. So if we really like what we've constructed and we want, we wanted this to be something that we can always come back to, then we would do this option down here at the bottom. That would then add a new one. If we look real quick what TreeMaster's got going on, you see you've got your library, you got your prefabs. These are the ones that this ships with. These are all the trees that are ready to go for painting on terrain. And then inside of resources, you've got your trees. So here's all of your template trees. So if you were to select on this guy and save a new tree template, you would then get tree 36. And you would then get 36 options on your slider. So that's how that works. With this one, we're just going to save this out as something that's collapsed for terrain, so we can paint this particular tree onto our terrain. So we'll go ahead and say export mesh for collapse, or export collapse mesh for terrains. I want to change the name though. Let's call this Tilting Autumn, whatever. And we'll go ahead and export. So we have exported it. So if we go back to our trees, we get confirmation down here that it was exported successfully. So this is going to be inside of my library, terrain ready, and what was it, Tilting Autumn. That guy right there. Nope, that's another one. Where is it at? Let's see. Tilting Autumn. So you see there is our collapsed version of the tree. So TreeMaster is still intact. We can still make all of our changes. And then this is our collapsed version of it. So we have a single mesh of this guy. And we've got a couple of materials here, different barks that have been applied, a particular leaf. So you can come through and customize, this however you want, but here's something that is ready to be painted onto a terrain. So that's the kind of the really big overview of TreeMaster. In the next video, we'll go a little bit more into some of the particular details.